Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Following news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please, let's go to the headlines.
Tonight, breaking news as we come on the air. Hurricane Erin growing in size, now threatening the East Coast with massive waves and dangerous rip currents. Mandatory evacuations and tropical storm warnings issued for the Outer Banks. A tropical storm watch just issued as far north as Virginia. The forecasters warning of destructive waves up to 20 feet high. New York City shutting down beaches at the height of the summer season. New Jersey's governor warning people to stay out of the water. Dozens rescued from the rough surf. New video showing hurricane hunters flying into the storm. Victor Oquendo from the Outer Banks, Ginger Z tracking the hurricane's next move. The video just coming in of a powerful explosion rocking a North Carolina community. Debris filling the sky. Firefighters inside a building at the time of the blast. What we're learning about their conditions tonight. 24 hours after that extraordinary meeting at the White House, President Trump today ruling out American boots on the ground in Ukraine. Russia launching new attacks despite the push for peace. Will Vladimir Putin agree to meet with President Zelensky? In the West tonight, the urgent search for a missing baby intensifies. The boy's mother pleading for his return, claiming he was kidnapped. Police now say the mother's no longer cooperating as they search the family home. Chaos at a New York beach, a dust devil sending beach equipment flying. Children racing for cover. President Trump escalating his attacks on museums, slamming the Smithsonian, saying there's too much focus on, quote, how bad slavery was. John Carl standing by. The narrow escape for two food influencers, an SUV crashing into a restaurant as they were filming. And America Strong tonight, the long-lost, cherished gift to a father, found more than a decade later, hundreds of miles away. And you'll never guess how it was discovered.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with
Thanks for coming! The buffet closes in 15 minutes, and we're out of shrimp. Happy Tuesday, everyone. So this week, our very own Brett Baer got pulled over by a cop in D.C. Well, he always did want to be a rapper. President Trump joked that ending the war in Ukraine could help boost his odds of getting into heaven. He added that he's already drawn up plans to help St. Peter renovate the pearly gates. The Democratic Party's finances are in trouble after spending $15 million to pay off Kamala's campaign. But at least they'll get half of that back in bottle returns. RFK Jr. squared off against Pete Hegseth in a pull-up and push-up contest. Unfortunately, they both had their asses kicked by this dude. Star Wars actor Mark Hamill revealed he wanted to flee the U.S. after Trump was elected a second time. Unfortunately, though, he couldn't get anyone to cover his shift at Arby's. As part of the Trump administration's ongoing crime crackdown, 52 people were arrested in D.C. in a single night. And 51 were migrants in the same car. In an interview, former MSNBC host Joy Reid said white men haven't invented anything. Kudos to her! Kudos to her for her first admission to date that Africans invented slavery.
Can't have it both ways.
Can't have it both ways. A Danish woman donated her daughter's pony to the local zoo to be fed to lions. Authorities intervened when they realized it wasn't a pony at all, but a confused and very lost Sarah Jessica Parker. So glad they caught her in time. The zoo animals were so relieved. And finally, Playboy is moving its headquarters to Miami Beach and opening a new club. Yeah, it's like it's like Christmas in August, said one man. Hey.
And that's
York Times, Trump's words may have the greatest influence on English of any president ever. But to them, of course, this could be harmful. To which I say, so can reading your garbage paper. The piece was titled "The Insidious Creep of Trump's Speaking Style." Insidious Creep, which also was the code name of the
Tuesday night, Air Canada and the union land a tentative deal, what's being called a historic moment for flight attendants.
I think we're going to see a major impact across the industry.
And the turbulence for travelers claiming compensation. Where things stand between Russia and Ukraine, the security guarantees NATO nations are offering, and what they might need. Allegations of sex abuse by those enrolled in a program that's supposed to help troubled teenagers.
It definitely changed who I was as a person.
A Global News investigation. Plus, a separation of church and stable ground.
Because it's a weird thing.
Why one of Sweden's most cherished buildings is moving. Good evening and thanks for joining us. Air Canada is getting its planes back in the skies. Early this morning, it reached a tentative deal with the union representing its flight attendants. They had defied a back-to-work order, grounding all flights and disrupting plans for about 500,000 passengers. Normal service is now slowly being restored, but it is going to take some time. Itu Garcha is at Vancouver's airport tonight. Itu.
Donna, the era of unpaid work is over. That's what the union representing Air Canada's flight attendants is declaring after a tense standoff that grounded the country's largest airline. Flights are taking off again. After 3 days of a full shutdown, the tentative deal was struck with the help of a mediator. Talks resumed late Monday, the first real negotiations since Friday. The union QB says the deal delivers transformational change, calling it a historic moment in its fight to affirm charter rights.
When governments stack the deck in favor of employers, unions are going to resist. I think the flight attendants prove that.
In a statement Tuesday, Minister of Jobs and Families Patty Hajdu said she's relieved, adding, the best agreements are the ones made at the table. The union didn't release details of the deal, but it argued its members put in nearly 35 hours a month on unpaid tasks, from boarding to safety briefings to post-flight deplaning. QP had rejected Air Canada's offer of an approximately 38% increase over 4 years, boosting top hourly wages to $94 and senior staff salaries to around $87,000 a year by 2027. QP said less than 18% of those gains reflected actual wage increases. The company had also offered new ground duty pay, a first for Air Canada.
This evening, we're going to have our first international departures. Those are critical for two reasons. We've got to get the crews abroad so that they can get their rest and come back, because right now all of our crews are in Canada.
Air Canada hasn't commented on the substance of the agreement, but says service will resume gradually over the next week.
I think you're going to see workers at WestJet and other airlines demand the same deal that we see at Air Canada. So I think we're going to see a major...
Victory in Epping as the High Court blocks the use of a local hotel for housing migrants.
At the end of the day, we got a point to make, and we've made it, and we would have stayed here to as long as it had ever have taken to have got them out of here. They shouldn't be here in the first place.
The Home Office warns the ruling could tear up the government's asylum plan if other councils followed suit.
Reform UK calls it a win for local people.
Is Britain's asylum system now in free fall, and could this spark a fight back across Britain?
Money in the pockets of working people. Higher living standards promised by this Labour government, delivered by this Labour government.
Well, the big question is Rachel Reeves on track to keep that promise. New inflation figures, they're going to come out at 7 o'clock this morning, helping decide how much your train fares are next year.
Will be about 3 feet higher than it is now, and it'll be full to the door. So we've got a very, very reduced amount of grain due to the dry weather.
British farmers were warned they could face one of the worst harvests on record. And now, as the combines roll in, we find out if those fears are becoming a reality.
Sure, that vapes are used to get people off smoking as a tool, because smoking is very harmful to people's health.
A major review finds that children who vape are 3 times more likely to go on to smoke. So, Are we creating a nicotine generation?
TV veteran John Stapleton will join us to open up about his Parkinson's diagnosis and why he's refusing to slow down.
Good morning. The relationship cannot continue. Those are the words of Newcastle striker Alexander Isak, who spoke for the first time of his desire to leave St James's Park with Liverpool, having already made a £110 million offer for the player. We'll look what it all means later this hour.
Got stuck under a cloud this morning. I've got some promising news for you. Sunshine is going to return later on for much of the UK. Full details in the forecast coming up soon.
Hello there to you on this Wednesday morning. A very good morning to you if you're watching and listening. I'm Eamon Holmes.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
This is DW News, and these are our top stories. U.S. President Donald Trump has ruled out sending U.S. ground troops to Ukraine in the event of a peace deal with Russia. Trump pledged to help guarantee Ukraine's security in a meeting with the Ukrainian president at the White House. He now suggests the U.S. may provide air support as part of a deal to end Russia's war in Ukraine. Mediators are awaiting Israel's official response to a new Gaza ceasefire proposal, which Hamas has accepted. The deal reportedly involves a 60-day ceasefire and a phased exchange of Israeli hostages for Palestinian prisoners. But an Israeli spokesperson has cast doubt on the offer, saying the government is not interested in, quote, partial deals. Rescue workers in Pakistan are searching for missing people after flooding swept through a remote mountain village north of Islamabad. At least 20 people are dead and 10 missing. It comes just days after more flash flooding claimed at least 340 lives. This is DW News from Berlin. You'll find much more news on our website at dw.com.
Chronicling the Auschwitz doctor's escape from justice. Watch Paris des Arts with Valérie Fayol on France 24 and France24.com.
Good morning, I'm Oliver Ferry, and this is Daybreak. Efforts continue to make the bilateral meeting between Volodymyr Zelensky and Vladimir Putin happen, but Donald Trump is for once being cautious, while Switzerland says it is prepared to grant the Russian president immunity from arrest on an international criminal court arrest warrant if it hosts the summit in Geneva. France reacts angrily to a letter sent by Benjamin Netanyahu to Emmanuel Macron accusing the French president of fueling anti-Semitism by recognizing a Palestinian state. Elisa Palace calls the letter abject and erroneous and says the accusation will not go unanswered. The death toll in Pakistan's flash floods rises to more than 300, with downpours continuing to lash several regions. Authorities reopen roads and restore electricity in affected areas, and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif orders authorities to accelerate recovery efforts in Buner in the northwest.
Good morning. At 6 o'clock on Breakfast today, we go inside the caves at the heart of an expanding hidden terror network.
Plus, further concerns this morning over how the Chancellor could target the sale of homes in her upcoming budget.
It's Wednesday, the 20th of August. Your headlines are Alex Crawford joins Somali forces clearing the mountain caves, where Islamic State are running a global financial and terror empire.
They thought IS was dead. Definitely not dead, is it? And the evidence here shows that IS is not dead at all. It's alive and kicking and expanding and exploding everywhere.
More councils are now seeking legal advice on closing migrant hotels in their patch after that successful challenge in Epping. President Trump says there'll be no American boots on the ground as part of a Ukraine peace deal, but that the US could offer air support. And the row between Newcastle and Wanderway striker Alexander Isak continues to grow as the player accuses the club of broken promises. Very good morning to you. Troops in Somalia.
Welcome to democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. President Trump says he's arranging trilateral talks aimed at ending Russia's war in Ukraine. Trump made the claim after wrapping up a hastily arranged summit at the White House Monday with European and NATO leaders joined by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Trump promised the U.S. would help guarantee Ukraine's security in any future peace deal with Russia, but said European countries would lead the efforts. Trump did not clarify whether he'd send U.S. forces to Ukrainian soil if necessary. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said Berlin remained open to participating in a peacekeeping mission. He also said the next round of negotiations should come only after Russia and Ukraine agree to a ceasefire.
Let's try to put pressure on Russia, because the credibility of these efforts we are undertaking today are depending on at least a ceasefire from the beginning of the serious negotiations from next step on.
Trump count.
We will support that too, like making it.
Sally McManus, the ACT Secretary, joining us a little earlier.
Today, the government hits back after Benjamin Netanyahu's extraordinary personal attack on the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese.
I don't take these things personally. I engage with people diplomatically. He's had similar things to say about other leaders.
The federal government has set aside $2 billion to support children with developmental delay and autism. Police hunt a gunman who fatally shot a 22-year-old in Sydney's west in what's believed to be a targeted attack. And Bruce Lemon returns to the federal court in a bid to overturn his failed defamation case. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Ross Childs. Our top stories in just a moment, but first we are standing by to bring you a media conference from Victoria's government responding to a rapid review of childcare in the state following a spate of recent abuse allegations. We'll take you to Melbourne as soon as that event gets underway. But first, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says he hasn't taken criticism from the Israeli Prime Minister personally, pointing to similar comments that Benjamin Netanyahu has made about other world leaders. In a social media post overnight, Mr. Netanyahu called Albanese a weak leader who has betrayed Israel. It comes after Israel's foreign minister revoked visas for Australia's representatives to the Palestinian Authority and Australia's decision to recognise a Palestinian state.
This is Asia Now.
It's 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 in New Delhi, and 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Paul Slim. At this hour, Asia's giants take steps to improve relations after years of tension. China and India agree to resume direct flights, ease visa restrictions, and boost trade as Beijing's top diplomat Wang Yi wraps up his visit to New Delhi. Extreme weather batters South Asia. The death toll from devastating floods in Pakistan rises to more than 350 after days of heavy rain. Indian authorities on alert too as non-stop rainfall inundates Mumbai, disrupting flights and train services. No U.S. boots on the ground, but air support remains an option. President Donald Trump rules out troops in Ukraine, but may back peace deal with air power.
More suffering for people in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, this time at the hands of the Uganda-based Islamist Allied Democratic Forces. The United Nations peacekeeping mission in the Congo, MONUSCO, reports that the ISIL-backed rebels killed at least 52 civilians in attacks between the 9th and 16th of August. It says these took place in the Beni and Lubero territories of North Kivu province, warning that the death toll could still rise further. Condemning the killings, MONUSCO said the latest ADF violence was accompanied by kidnappings, looting, and the destruction of property. People in the region are already facing a precarious humanitarian situation, and the UN mission said it would reinforce support to the Congolese authorities for civilian protection. The renewed violence comes as a separate conflict between the DRC army and the Rwanda-backed M23 group continues to simmer in the region. The United Nations Assistant Secretary General for Africa says security and humanitarian conditions in South Sudan are deteriorating. In a briefing to the Security Council, she said recent military offensives have resulted in deaths, displacement, and the destruction of civilian infrastructure.
There has been a continued erosion of the gains previously made in the peace process, including of the trust and confidence built among the parties to the revitalized peace agreement. There has been an escalation of political and subnational violence and stagnation in the implementation of the peace agreement.
Over 9 million people need urgent humanitarian assistance. The aid workers face mounting risks, including attacks and administrative barriers.
South Sudan remains committed to ensuring that any obstacles, real or perceived, to UNMISS operations are addressed in good faith and without delay. We confirm that presence of any such situations could either be attributed to our efforts to ensuring safety of the mission's assets and or personnel, or they are merely due to lack of information sharing or the capacity of the individuals involved. It is never a policy of the government of the Republic of South Sudan to hinder UNMISS mandate.
The UN Assistant Secretary General for Africa said calls for an end to hostilities, de-escalation and return to dialogue have not yielded results and urged parties to unblock the political deadlock.
Protesters on Tuesday gathered in the West Bank city of Ramallah in support of imprisoned Palestinian leader Marwan Barghouti. Demonstrators took to the streets after far-right Israeli Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir was filmed berating and confronting Barghouti in jail. Barghouti was arrested more than 2 decades ago for his alleged involvement in anti-Israeli attacks during the Second Intifada. He is currently serving 5 life sentences. Polls consistently show he is the most popular Palestinian leader. The image that emerged was indeed shocking. At first glance, we couldn't even recognize Marwan Barghouti. It was painful and heartbreaking, but it should serve as a warning and a red flag for the Palestinian people and all international institutions. There are still acts of liquidation taking place inside Israeli prisons, posing a serious threat to the lives of Palestinian detainees. In the video shared on X on Friday, Barghouti appears older and gaunt in one of the rare images of him to be seen in years. Itamar Ben-Gvir is heard saying Israel will confront anyone who acts against the country and wipe them out.
On August 20th, the world marks World Mosquito Day, not as a celebration but as a reminder of the devastating toll this insect continued to take on global health. The date commemorates Ronald Ross's 1897 discovery that mosquitoes transmit malaria, a finding that transformed medical science.
It's not really a celebration. It's a time to commemorate how important these really small beasts are in terms of their impact on human health globally.
Yet, more than 125 years later, mosquito-borne diseases remain one of humanity's greatest challenges.
There are different ways we can reduce transmission of these pathogens by trying to limit the amount of mosquitoes that are around or that are interacting with us. The first way is to reduce their breeding sites. So mosquitoes, they lay eggs in aquatic environments, and then their juveniles grow up to become adults. So if you have standing water on your property, so underneath pot plants or oftentimes around air conditioning units, mosquitoes can breed in those habitats. So trying to reduce that standing water is something you can do at the level of your household.
Dengue, the fastest spreading of them, killed nearly 12,000 people last year. With over 1 million deaths annually linked to mosquito-borne diseases, World Mosquito Day calls for vigilance, innovation, and action against one of the nature's smallest but deadliest threats.
Tonight, the state of emergency as Hurricane Erin storms towards the East Coast. Winds already topping 100 miles an hour. Lightning flashing through the eye of the storm. As the season's first major hurricane gets closer, rough waves slamming down with dangerous surf conditions threatening nearly the entire East Coast up to New York City. Evacuations extended in the Outer Banks. Will homes like these survive? Plus, the White House preparing for a possible meeting between Putin and Zelensky as President Trump declares he won't send American ground troops to Ukraine. The latest on the urgent push for peace. Plus, our exclusive interview with French President Macron and his warning about Putin. Debris shooting into the air after a major explosion in North Carolina. Multiple firefighters injured after authorities say a driver plowed into a gas line and sped away. New technology debuting today, helping flyers race through nearly every part of security at the airport. We'll show you how it works, and the airport's rolling it out. Wild moments caught on camera, a car crashing into a restaurant, sending 2 food bloggers flying. The new COVID vaccine guidance for toddlers from the nation's leading pediatricians at odds with the health secretary. And when a car factory worker lost his wallet in an SUV he helped build a decade ago, he never thought it would come back to him 151,000 miles later. Nightly News starts right now.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Yamas.
Hurricane Erin threatens the East Coast with dangerous surf and rip currents for hundreds of miles. And one more to grow on. Another potential storm follows on Erin's heels.
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening, I'm John Dickerson. Maurice Dubois is off tonight. Hurricane Erin is causing serious concerns for beachgoers. Hurricane Erin threatens the East Coast with dangerous surf and rip currents for hundreds of miles. And one more to grow on. Another potential storm follows on Erin's heels.
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening, I'm John Dickerson. Maurice Dubois is off tonight. Hurricane Erin is causing serious concerns for beachgoers and oceanfront communities from Florida to New York. Parts of North Carolina's Outer Banks have been evacuated. We'll have a report from that vacation hotspot turned ghost town in a moment, but we're going to begin with President Trump's efforts in earnest to end the war in Ukraine. Since his meeting on Friday with Russian President Vladimir Putin and his meeting yesterday with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Mr. Trump has been pressed for details about security guarantees for Ukraine. Today, the president made clear what he will not do. The president said the U.S. will not send ground troops to Ukraine to enforce any peace agreement. He is now pushing forward with plans to have Presidents Zelensky and Putin meet face-to-face for the first time since 2019. Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes leads us off tonight, and Nancy, as if it weren't hard enough, now comes the hard part.
Exactly, John. Trump may have just met with both Putin and Zelensky, but the true test is whether he can get them to meet with each other. And tonight, White House officials insist that they are on the verge of defying expectations and brokering a sit-down after 3.5 years of a standoff.
CBS News has confirmed that Budapest, Hungary, is being eyed as a possible site for what would be historic talks between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin. The two men have met only once before, in Paris in 2019, 2 years before Putin invaded Zelensky's country and laid claim to much of eastern Ukraine. Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov seemed to slow walk the plans for talks today, saying any contacts involving leaders must be prepared very thoroughly. But White House officials anticipate the sit-down will take place within the next 2 weeks and hope to have the date and site nailed down in the next few days.
But the president has put tremendous public pressure to bring this war to a close, and he has scoffed at the ideas of others that have been raised that we should wait another month before any meeting takes place.
In Alaska on Friday, and again in a phone call last night, Putin proposed holding the talks in Russia, a likely non-starter for Zelensky.
Next time in Moscow. Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little...
Good evening, I'm Jeff Bennett.
I'm Vaz. On the News Hour tonight, the White House pushes Russia for direct talks with Ukraine, but signs of compromise are still elusive.
Competing claims from the Trump administration and D.C. city leaders about crime levels as more federal troops are deployed to patrol the nation's capital.
And at the height of wildfire season, thousands of firefighters face frontline dangers, including toxic smoke with little to no protection.
If the Forest Service were to allow firefighters to wear masks, it would mean admitting that smoke is dangerous, and that could cause a huge rethinking of the whole way the agency works right now.